We have a special presentation from a person who I've known quite a long time and someone who I have looked up to and thought really deserved to be much more honored than she is. And that is Ollie Stewart, who's the executive director of the Southside Wellness Center, and she does much more than that. So as she makes her way up, the information about her is in your booklet. The only thing that I will mention is that we were short on space, and so she only got one page instead of two, but she very much deserved it for the richness that she brings, not just to the Southside Wellness Center. She has advised many political people on their campaigns and their activities, and she is a force to be reckoned with in her ward that the Southside Wellness Center is located in. She is someone who I know that our St. Louis SLA office listens to because she has the ear of the community. And recently, she was at the Board of Estimate and Apportion, yes, telling them what they need to do with our money. And that is make sure that you get 12th and Park reopened for the kids. So she is, and she had a loyal, trusted group with her, and they all made presentations. And I'll tell you what, she is truly a force to be reckoned with, not just on the South Side, but on issues related to seniors and people in general. So with that, Ollie Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, but I want to, Bryce, he didn't tell you that we fought with him in his other job too. We had a group of seniors that used to go to the workhouse and do things, and he kind of was, we had to fight. We went through him with many occasions. He was talking, but just spoke on about the recreation. So because of they moving the youth out and putting the homeless people, it's not nothing I have against the homeless, but I feel that our youth is very important for growth, recreation, education for our youth, and knowledge. So we got together and we went down, and we call ourselves the Great Panthers. So look out for the Great Panthers, because we will be coming, okay? It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. They weren't me, I don't know what Charles, why he said, had made up a topic to say, I'm a senior, for so what? Now he know I was gonna mess with that. How many seniors we have out there? Raise your hand. Okay, when I say I'm a senior, so what? I'm a history maker, that's me and all of you. I'm a caregiver, I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor, I'm an instructor, I'm a provider, I'm a voter, I'm a citizen of the greatest country in the world, and I'm a friend. I'm a counselor, I'm a merchant, I'm a business person, and I'm a messenger. I'm a writer, I'm a singer, I am a song, and the beat goes on. All right. I'm boss, I'm bored, boss, and beautiful. I am cautious, charming, and cheerful. I'm a coach, I'm a client, I'm a collaborator, I'm a dancer. And you know I love to dance. I'm a diplomat. I am first class, first rated, and first. I am essential, exclusive, and excitement. I'm grateful, thankful, and helpful. I'm a nurse. I'm an official. I'm a parent. I'm a partner. I'm a prophet. I'm a shareholder. I'm a witness. We have witnessed many things. I'm a visionary. I am a volunteer. I'm an author. I'm a leader. I'm a guide. I'm a specialist. I am lighthearted, likable, light shine before all. I'm somebody. I'm a senior. So what? So what said the young generation, not wet behind their ears? So what said a young man or woman, lesser years? So what? Just keep living. Just keep living. That is what it takes to look back on the past, be thankful for the present, and say a prayer for a better day in the future. This leads me to the story. I could not even say I'm a senior and be where we are if it hadn't been for the story of J.D. and Ethel Shelby here in St. Louis and the struggle of fair houses. How many of you all know about that? How many? You don't know about it, okay. Well, I will read you. It's not because we didn't work hard for fair houses. It's because we was restricted for certain areas. J.D. Ethel and Shelby put a face on the struggle for fair houses, and I feel that's the reason I have a home, and I live in Tower Grove East right now. The words of J.D. Shelby, he said, I was born in Starksville, Mississippi on Christmas Day in 1907. Me and my wife, Ethel, got married on December 14, 1923. I wasn't quite 16, and she was younger than me. I've been working all my life when I was down south. I did sawmill work, railroad construction, all like that. When I first came to St. Louis, my wife and my kids, they stayed in Mississippi. I stayed here for a year, and I was only making $17 a week. When I came to St. Louis, they had places like the Fox Theater. No color could go there. And the baseball diamond up on Spokesman Park. They didn't allow no color in there at one time. When they did open up Spokesman Park for color, only place they could sit was on the bleachers. When I was here for a year, I went back down to Mississippi and came back with my wife and kid. At that time, it was hard to find a place where you had children. So every place we would go, they didn't want us. We had been wanting to buy a house, but we thought we better save up some money. While we was both working, I told my wife, I'll tell you what we will do. My check is more than your check, and we will save my check, and you will use your check to take care of the family and the household. So we had some money saved up. And I wanted to buy a car. But my wife said, J.D., no. We will take that money and buy a house. I talked with my supervisor the next day when I got to work, and he said, Shelley, you know that's right. Your wife is right. Ethel went to the Church of God in Christ, and her pastor was elderly Robert Bishop. He was also a real estate. We went and talked to him, and he said, yep, I know a place on Labadee that's for sale. It got 2 apartments, so you can rent one out. And so we went and looked at it and decided we would buy it. The price of the house was $5,700. What they said in court was that was supposed to be a restricted area. No color lived on the side of Tell Avenue. There was 1 block from where my house was on Labadee. This Jack Kramer that sued us, he didn't even own no property on that block. I never even seen him around there. Nobody lived on that block said that they wanted us to move. They said in court that had restriction on the property on Labadee date back since 1911. When they took it to the Supreme Court, they passed a decision that said, it doesn't make any difference, white or colored, long as they are able to buy property anywhere in the United States. When I got home that evening, my wife was sitting on the front porch reading the paper, and we had won the case. That night, our pictures was in the paper, and we were sitting on the couch with our kids between us, and some on the floor with the newspaper. This was the first time, the way I see it, this is the end of it, not the end, but it was good. It was a good thing that we done this case. We was the first one to live where they said color couldn't live. and the case go on. It is a historic place now, and if it hadn't been for him. And I think, from what I can read, that Missouri overturned the court order, but he had to go higher to the Supreme Court to make sure they did away with the covenant. And I asked Mark, with some of the things I was hearing this morning, are you sure you're not taking us back? Are you sure? Because there are some other things that I see happening in the city and some of the communities that I've been working in the community since 1972 or longer. And I saw some strange things in communities that have vanished, different places where you can call it color the blacks live. You don't see it anymore. And like I spoke about Compton Hill was a well-known neighborhood. The community lived in that community. They lived, raised their family, and educated. And they was not able to get federal dollars because they were so close to Compton Heights. But those people developed their homes, built their homes, and raised their families. But the name have changed, and it's not hardly on the map. I wonder what happened there. Because it wasn't because they weren't hard workers. I think the first male that was hired at Cagle Gas came out of that area. We had boxers, we had Cagle. Our first federal judge came out of that area. Maya Angelou, her house is for sale now over in that area. We have a beautiful school that we just worked and reopened back up, Lowitcher School. And it is going well. I've just taken 29 kids to Washington, D.C. to the African American Museum. But I'm to the house, and where's Charles? You got some work to do. And I want to thank you all, and I need to address the seniors. And I was blessed, and after the rinse rack, I was part of the rinse rack, and we taken management training, and I worked in Blue Mile. 1,000 seniors, 3330 and 3210. The seniors there, their income was $85 a month. That was before old age assistance. Some of them was too poor to have the Brooke Amendment. But we housed those people there, and they lived, and you had to convince them, if you move here, even if you're paying $54, you don't have to pay electric bill. That was the process of the education. They live well. And I think that was a step that we need to see after the seniors. Now I'm a senior, and I'm a city girl. And you all don't have any assisted living in the city. I just lost my best friend, Pearlie Evans. She had to go way out in Chesterfield to find a place to be housed. What's wrong with letting us city folks have assisted living place in the city? I'm talking to the developing HUD and every place else. There are beautiful places around. Fairground Park, Tower Grove Park. We would love to have a beautiful place like that. So thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure for being here.
Ollie, on behalf of the Civil Rights Enforcement Agency for the City of St. Louis, we would like to thank you for being a guest presenter at our 2017 Fair Housing Conference. Please, another round of applause.
Thank you. Hey, this is for all the seniors. Thank you so much, Charles.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
What you've heard today was not only do we need to have housing, but we need to have infrastructure. To begin to create that infrastructure in a meaningful way and have that conversation, we've invited 3 people to speak to us about housing plus services and the importance of community in doing that. And first up, we're going to change the order a little bit, is Jennifer Bess, who is with Senior Services Incorporated. Jennifer.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Bess, and I am the CEO, Executive Director of City Seniors, Inc. And I would like to take a moment to thank Charles Bryson for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about transportation and seniors. I call anyone over 50 a senior, actually 60 because I'm in the SLAY network. So what I do, CEO, executive director, is I spend a lot of time behind the scenes running the business, which is also known as keeping the doors open. Keeping on top of a business requires being a proactive participant in the daily operations and planning strategically for the future. And today I'm going to talk to you about transportation for seniors and the disabled. I prepared some thoughts, 2,030 words to be exact. I'll take approximately 15 minutes of your time. Being on the move, getting around, that freedom. I'm a mother of 4 teenagers. I work in the aging field, and here's what I know. Being on the move is essential to who we are. It's a part of our identity. It starts as soon as we can crawl. We just have got to get to go to where we want to go. Remember that freedom you felt in grade school and in middle school when you stayed out until you absolutely had to go home? And then there was high school when we couldn't wait to get our driver's license. That image, that freedom. We still want it. And at midlife, we realized that getting around is essential to daily life. Kids to school, ourselves to work, grocery store, banking, visiting friends, just living our lives. I have a friend, she turned 90 about 6 months ago. She's lost her husband. She's also lost 2 children. And she tells me this story. She says, "Can you believe it? Jennifer, I'm 90. I just can't believe it. I had to go get my driver's license renewed, and I went to the Department of Revenue, and I was so scared that they weren't going to give me my license. I thought to myself, wow, I haven't thought that thought since I was in high school." I imagine many of you in this room have been thinking about or haven't thought about that day, or have been thinking about that day, or have already lived that day, the one where you lose your freedom to drive. I had a plan, she continued, that if they told me I was too old, I was going to tell them that I promised that I would only drive to church and to the grocery store. And if they would just give me my license, that I promised, that's all I would do. She paused, and then she lit up, and she said, "Can you believe it? In amazement, they gave me my license." She was stunned by her own good fortune. They let her drive for 3 more years, and she did not have to tell her made-up story and reasons for why she should have her license. She gets to keep that story for the next time. "Aren't you glad you didn't tell them the story first?" I said. "Now you can drive wherever you want to." At 93, she'll go again. I told her to drive carefully. Her freedom depended on it. I didn't have the heart to tell her that her story probably wouldn't work. You know, she's one of the lucky people, though. Not all of us have the luxury of being somewhat in control of when our freedom ends. For some of us, it comes to a screeching halt. It's certainly nothing we plan for or a part of anything we want to be involved with. My dad, a couple months ago, snapped his ankle, his right one. Now he can't drive. He's in a cast. He lives with the promise of freedom. The cast is off in a few weeks. "How does this feel?" I asked him, "your newfound confinement." "Oh, it's terrible," he says, laughing. He's such a good sport, my dad. I am certain this temporary setback has his thoughts turned acutely to aging, and his lack of freedom has been brought from the basement of his mind up to the first floor. So what do we do when we can't get around anymore, our whole lives depending on it? When you cannot drive, how do you get to where you're going? Who can you rely on for help? Well, in emergencies, it's a frantic call to 911. In non-emergencies, it requires some planning and some research. Never fear, though, you have options. Some of them are obvious: family, friends, and or the church you're affiliated with if you have a religious background, public transportation, Metro, Bi-State, call a ride, for-profit such as cabbies and Ubers. And I just met the executive director of Friendship Village. They have volunteers. So there's many options. It does require some research. Then there's what I know, which is not-for-profit transportation services throughout the SLAE system, St. Louis Area Agency on Aging. They'll all cost you, these transportation services, in one way or another. They'll cost you time or they will cost you money. A lot of the time they will cost you both. An important question to ask yourself is, what do you value the most? For my mom, it was her time. She did not want to be traveling more than she had to. And then I've spoken to folks who just want to ride around because they get to see what's going on around town. A chance to get out, to see the sights, a change from the four walls that they look at day in and day out. Mr. Bryson, when he first asked me to speak, mentioned in our conversation about this new vehicle that's been invented that doesn't require a driver. And apparently you get in and it's automatically programmed to go where you want to go. I wonder, he said to me, would seniors use that for transportation? What? Sigh, I have seen this car on TV. I haven't quite wrapped my head around the idea. It's certainly groundbreaking. There's no question about that. I didn't think it would happen in my lifetime, yet here it is. The concept frightens me, so I asked around. Most baby boomers said, nope. A lot of Gen Xers said, I don't know about that, very hesitantly. Millennials, born in the early 80s and up, they'll be crossing the country in them, zipping around like it's nothing. But us, I don't know about that. So can I get a show of hands? A car without a driver? Who in this room would take that on? I would try it once or twice, but would you be zipping around with it? Would any seniors in the room? Very brave. It's sort of a scary concept when you think about it. Who's in charge of your safety and security? Well, what would you use? That depends on your circumstances, so let's break it down. Are you mobile, meaning can you get around by yourself without relying on another person to help you? Do you use a cane, a walker, a wheelchair, or a scooter? Are you independent, or do you need a caregiver to help you? If you live in the city of St. Louis, you are a lucky bee because you have the St. Louis Area on Aging Network, SLAE for short. Not all agencies on aging are funded for transportation. St. Louis County isn't. St. Louis City is. Lucky for us. If you live on the north side, you have the SLAE sites of Northside, Robert Fulton, Little Sisters of the Poor, Wesley House. And if you live on the south side, your options are Grace Hill, Southside Wellness, St. Louis Activity Center, 5-Star Senior Center, and City Seniors Incorporated. Each of the SLAE granted providers offers different services to suit your needs. With the exception of Grace Hill and Robert Fulton, all of these choices offer transportation. If you're looking for transportation to get you to the senior center or out to group activities and some light transportation, then Wesley House, Little Sisters, Southside Wellness, St. Louis Activities, and 5-Star can accommodate you nicely. If you need to go grocery shopping, banking, beauty, barber, medical appointments, pharmacy, to the hospital, dialysis, nursing home, to a friend's house, group planned activities, you can call Northside on the north side or City Seniors on the south side. Both have accommodations for persons with disabilities, and their fleets have ramp-equipped vehicles. If you need a caregiver to ride along with you, your caregiver rides free of charge at City Seniors. I can't speak for Northside. Okay. All staff in the SLAE program are background screened every which way: family caregiver, safety registry, elder abuse, criminal background, driving record, sexual offenders, screenings, all for your safety and protection. City Seniors is also funded through SLAE, CDA, MoDOT, Daughters of Charity Foundation, and individual contributions and support. I don't want to leave anybody out, just speaking about SLAE. Another transportation story. I know you must have seen someone who uses a scooter by now, or an electric wheelchair. In my neighborhood, there's a couple of people who get all of their chores done in that wheelchair scooter. I just giggle every time I see someone zipping down the street in one of those contraptions, because that's one independent person who's just not going down without a fight. We transported a guy who would run the battery out of his wheelchair. He would call us broken down. Oh, we groaned when we got that call, because those suckers are not easy to move when the battery is burned out. He drove us out of our minds because this battery burnout thing, it was a weekly occurrence. That freedom, it's everything, man. Today, I'm going to speak to you briefly about a few secrets to keep you being a good traveling customer. Tips that will keep your wheels spinning and your freedom somewhat mobile as you age. The following tips will keep those who service your needs thinking of you as a lovable human being and not a big jerk. Let's be honest, we all have our moments. Did you change your plans? Call and cancel right away. If we get to your house and you don't come out, or if you come out and tell us you don't need to go anymore, you're sick, whatever the reason. If we come to pick you up and you're not going, well, you've just thrown us off schedule or kept a time slot filled that someone else could really have used. And that, my dears, becomes upsetting. Courtesy is a wonderful thing. Please remember to be courteous. Be ready, plan ahead. If you are late for a scheduled pickup, your tardiness creates a domino effect for every client after you. Everyone becomes late, and then what happens is the people after you become frustrated and act all put out and stuff. That gets really ugly. We get to put out the fires that are set. Please be on time. Be prepared to wait for your return, and remember that sometimes you will be on the vehicle for a while. Here's where I remind you to use the restroom before your trip. Also bring something to read, an easily transportable craft, knitting for example. If you're tech savvy, use this time to catch up on email and social media. Get creative. And hey, if you don't have to wait, woohoo. This is a pleasant surprise. Also, if you're in a wheelchair, use a scooter or a walker. Let the transportation department know when you make the appointment to transport you. Sometimes it can really make a difference in which vehicle we send your way. A wheelchair is not going to fit on a full minivan with an empty seat. And one more thing, for the love of all things holy, please be where you say you're going to be. Please be ready and watching for us. Our service is contribution-based. Contribution means give what you can. So it costs somebody something. We pay a driver's salary, there's insurance, vehicle maintenance and upkeep, et cetera, et cetera. Transportation is a very expensive business to operate. Please contribute your fair share. I believe the somewhere in the SLAY network, we ask for a contribution of $5 or $6. I know at City Seniors it's $6 round trip. So keeping all of this in mind, this should help transportation experience run smoothly. This is what I know. I know transportation. And if anybody has any questions, I know there's follow-up after, and I'll be available where you can come grab me after the event or call me at City Seniors if you'd like to connect. But I'd like to thank again Charles Bryson and CREA for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about the field I've been working in for the last 11 and a half years. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Our second presenter for this segment is Lisa Cagle, who is with Citizens for Modern Transit, or CMT, and she's also going to be talking about transportation needs and options, but I think a little differently than what we saw in Jennifer Bess's presentation. So without further ado.
So I'm talking about public transportation. The organization that I work for is called Citizens for Modern Transit. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about all the options available, but I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what is available in our region, how it works, whether it's working, how it's not working, and then also a couple of innovative solutions to some of the gaps that we see in public transportation. So I have a couple examples about that. Okay, so first, we know that we have a pretty strong background for a great public transportation system in the region, right? We've got light rail, it connects us across the river, it connects the region in Illinois and Missouri. We've got a really expansive bus system that goes lots of places, sometimes not as regularly running as we want it to, but it does go lots of places. We have Metro Call a Ride, and even sometimes in the more rural areas, we have OATS, which is filling in the gaps for rural public transportation. And we also have various ways of people figuring out how to get where they're going or to schedule rides and those sorts of things. So because we have updated an RSS feed on our buses, you can get real-time arrivals on Google Maps. So if you have Google Maps on your smartphone and you program in for transit, you can tell whether your bus is running late or it's early or those sorts of things, which is pretty great. You can use the Metro Trip Planner online if you have a desktop computer at your house. There's also an app now that Metro has for your smartphone called Metro on the Go that again has those real-time arrivals that you can tell whether your bus is running late. I don't know if you're like me, but oftentimes when I use the bus for years, and when I was waiting for the bus, if it wasn't a regularly running route, you were like, okay, did the bus come early or is it just really late? You're not sure if you missed it or if you're still waiting for it. Like there's those big of gaps. And so the Metro on the Go will tell you, like, is it running late? Is it coming early? Is it in the next few minutes? So that's a big improvement from what we've had in the past, is if you have a smartphone, you can tell. Now, if you don't have a smartphone, you can't tell, right? You're still just waiting at the bus stop trying to figure out what's going on. If you're waiting for a train, they'll tell you what's going on over the loudspeakers, but if you're waiting at a bus stop, you don't know. Metro, just like 2 weeks ago, implemented a new system that's called interactive voice response. So now you can call the Metro number, so the Metro information number that you used to be only manned during like the hours between up until like 4:30 on Monday through Friday, and there wasn't anything on the weekend, and so if you were stuck in the evening or the weekend, you couldn't tell anything about your whether your bus was coming or not. Now they finally have, you can call this number. Now, you don't have to have a smartphone to do that, but oftentimes you're going to have some kind of cell phone or mobile phone to do that. But you can call it, you put in your bus stop, right? So this picture over here, you can see it. Every bus stop now has an actual number on it. They didn't used to have this even. This is new too. Has an actual number on it that you can say what the number of the bus stop is and it will tell you when your bus is coming. So this is new. Again, you have to have a mobile phone, but it doesn't have to be a smartphone, so you don't have to have internet access or anything like that. That's a big improvement as well. So these are some of the things that we have going on in the St. Louis region right now. But there's still lots of problems, right? So if you look at this, I have several pictures here. This stop over here, I don't know if you can tell up there in the upper right corner, is a bus stop on Lindbergh. There's no infrastructure, there's no sidewalk, it's just a stop in the middle of nowhere. Over to the left, you have a woman who is using the ticket validator for the train. She's in a wheelchair, she can use it, but if you don't know how to do it, that's a big barrier, right? If you don't know how to use the fare system in the first place. We have problems sometimes with crosswalks, right? So even if a crosswalk does exist and it's not a bad crosswalk that needs to be updated, it might be closed. And if you're somebody who has limited mobility, if you're an older person and you're walking from transit to somewhere and there's not a crosswalk available or it's not a very good crosswalk, then what do you do? Yeah, so the picture of the really nice bus driver smiling right now, but he has the fare box in front of him, right? Like, using public transit is a really big deal to people who don't know how to use it, right? So there are lots of older adults who might have used the train or the bus or their streetcar when they were growing up, but haven't used it in years. And for the first time ever, they're not able to drive, and they're thinking about using public transit, but going and trying to get on the bus when you don't know what's going on is really intimidating, right? It's really scary. Nobody wants to be the idiot who's holding up the whole bus because you don't know how to pay for your fare. So there are still these sorts of things that exist that are barriers to people using even the public transit that we have, right? Using it to get places and be connected and independent. So I want to tell you about a couple of innovative solutions that are happening. At the top here is a picture of, this is Kansas City Area Transit Association. On May 1st, they're launching what they're calling the Ride KC Freedom on Demand program. So one of the barriers that we have here in St. Louis is we have Call a Ride, we have bus, we have the train, but sometimes it's hard to figure out how to integrate them. We know that Call a Ride is available, but sometimes you might not know how to use it. It's not clear sometimes whether you're allowed to use it, whether you're just, if you're just a general, if you're not somebody who has a disability that limits your mobility, then are you allowed to use it, right? There's all these questions. And what KCATA's new Ride KC Freedom on Demand program does is allow you to actually order on demand, not like Call a Ride where you have to schedule in advance, but you can order on demand, and they're partnering with taxi companies so that this is something that's not just for people with disabilities, it's not just for older adults, it's for the general public to fill in the gaps for transit. Right, so it's a really cool system. And so part of this is Robbie Mackinnon, who is the CEO of KCATA over in Kansas City, he's somebody who lost his vision later in life. And so he's very aware of the sorts of different mobility needs that people might have. And I'm just gonna read a quote from him, because I think that this quote is really great. He says, "Ride KC Freedom is unique in that the service concept was created first to better serve persons with disabilities and then built out for everyone." So he lost his sight nearly 5 years ago and became dependent on public transit when he did that. He says, "Traditionally, transit agencies create service for the masses and then try to figure out how to serve persons with disabilities or older adults. We have done the opposite here." So this is a really innovative program, again, because it's sort of putting people who have mobility issues first and then expanding that service for everyone. And that's a great way to ensure that the service remains funded, that it remains people paying attention to it, right? It's not just for this population over here who might need it, but who are different than everybody else. But they're starting with that population and expanding it to everybody else. It's a really innovative idea. Another thing that I'm just going to mention briefly is, when we're talking about housing, oftentimes when we're talking about seniors and mobility and older adults and people with limited mobility issues and transportation, the Twin Cities is focusing on putting not just millennials close to public transportation, right? Because that's sort of the big, millennials want public transportation, so we're going to build these like great expensive apartments near transit. It's going to like revolutionize the city. So the Twin Cities is doing that kind of stuff, but they're also looking at doing mixed age living facilities and senior living facilities near transit, because again, they're recognizing that older adults oftentimes are ones who are really dependent on public transportation too, or even if they're not dependent, are wanting to use it. One of the big things, and I can talk about this later if people have questions, one of the big things that people ask, is why would I want to use public transportation when it's so dangerous? Well, it's still the case that it's way less dangerous to use public transportation than it is to drive. We never talk about that. That's not something that we like to talk about, but it is the facts that you're much more likely to get a serious injury or a fatal injury from driving than you are from public transportation. So it's still safer for all age groups to use public transportation than it is for them to drive, but particularly for older adults or people who are having issues with, may have issues with their ability to drive. I want to tell you just a little bit about, in closing here, a program that CMT has been doing for over 10 years now. This is our 11th year doing it, called the 10-Toe Express. And so the 10-Toe Express program was originally started with a grant from the Missouri Foundation for Health, And the idea was that we wanted to link public transportation with more active living, with healthier, more active living. And right now, the program at 11 years going strong is a great way to link health and transportation, but also to increase independence, to limit social isolation for people, right? So we do these walking groups, and the walking groups leave from an assigned Metrolink station, and they do it throughout a weekly. They do it weekly throughout a 12-week session. So, for example, we have a group that meets at the Shrewsbury station on Monday mornings, every Monday morning for 12 weeks, and they use public transportation to go to various parts of the region. So they might decide to go to Forest Park and do a walk one day. So they get on the train, take the train to Forest Park, get out, do a walk, get back on the train, and go back. Or they might decide to take a bus somewhere a little bit further out in the county to go to a new venue or a museum or a historical event, or all sorts of things, even just a neighborhood where they might want to see the architecture. And so we have one at Shrewsbury, we had one at North Hanley, we don't right now. There's one at St. Charles Rock Road, there's one in Belleville. So we have 6 different walking groups. And the idea is that these groups are led by volunteer walking leaders that go to interesting locations, and you teach people how to use transit. You teach them how to buy their bus ticket, how to buy their train ticket, how to get on the train, off the train, where they need to sit, all sorts of things about using public transportation that makes it a lot less intimidating for people to use it. And you're doing it in groups, right? So you're not having to go on your own. And so people are getting their social interaction. They're seeing this same group of people every week. And so it's building up relationships and community in various ways. And one of the coolest things is that you get to be sort of a tourist in your own hometown, right? So you're doing things that are active and fun. But you're seeing places that maybe you haven't seen in 20 years. You knew that, Crown Candy was over in Old North, but since you don't live in Old North anymore, you never go over there. And so, hey, here's the bus line that you take to get there, right? So those are the sorts of things that the Tento Express is doing. Through this program, we also have a bunch of walk maps that we've done. So we have over 100 different walk maps that show you how to get from public transportation to various sites of interest. So for example, what I have listed here is the Cupcakery, Bellefontaine Cemetery, the Baseball Walk of Fame, the North Riverfront Trail, the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. They're all different kinds of locations that people might want to go to, and we show them how to get there using transit. So I have a quote here from a program participant. She says, "I've been a part of the Tento program since the spring of 2008. I had recently retired and was looking for something to do. It has been so amazing, I don't know where to start. First, I have learned how to get around using Metrolink. Though I live out in Jefferson County, it's just a hop to the Shrewsbury station where I catch the train. It's much easier than driving to events around town. Second, the program has got me moving. Besides the several miles we cover on our walks, it also gets me off the couch and out of the house. I have made so many wonderful friends. Lastly, I have seen so many great things around town. I have lived in St. Louis my whole life, but have discovered many new things that I never realized were here. The walk leaders put great effort into making our walks interesting." So that's another sort of innovative programming solution, right? So we need to be thinking about how we plan transportation itself, that we need to be thinking about building the built environment, so that involves the streets, and the housing and all of the facilities that we use, that we make them, we build them so that they're for the most vulnerable people, right? So if we're building them so that the young mom with 5 kids can use this facility and feel safe and get where she needs to go, and the older adult who might have mobility issues can use this facility and get where they need to go, then we've made this, whatever we're building, available to users of all types and varieties, right? We need to be thinking about this not with just the average user in mind, but with the people who have the most significant needs or vulnerabilities. And we can do that not only with the built environment, we can do that with programming, we can do that with the apps that we're using, the technology that we're using, like KCATA is doing. We can do it with where we situate housing, like the Twin Cities are doing. And we can have programs that, again, teach people how to use the things that are going to help them be more independent, they're going to help them be more connected to the lives that they want to live. And I think that all of these things are tied together. So, thank you.
The last speaker for the afternoon is Shelby Schroeder from Community Connections for Seniors for Oasis St. Louis.
My name is Shelby Schroeder. I'm with the Oasis Institute. We're based here in St. Louis. And there's a lot of pressure to be the last speaker, so hopefully I'll be a little bit entertaining to keep everybody awake. So to start with, okay, so there's this new movie out, Going in Style, if you haven't seen it. It's about 3 older gentlemen who become friends and they decide to rob a bank. So my question to you is, if you decided to rob a bank right now, how many people would hide you from the police? So just keep that number in mind. Usually it's around 5 or fewer people. So the follow-up question is, when you leave here today and you're driving in the rain, you have some car trouble, how many people could you call to help you? And usually that's a little bit more, higher number, hopefully, than the people who hide you from the police, closer to maybe 20 or 30 people. And the purpose of that question is to really think of the social connections that you have in your life today, and how important those are, those social connections as you age. And usually that number of those closer connections that you have that would maybe hide you from the police, those closer connections, if you have an illness, would let you maybe live with them for a month or 2 while you recover from a serious illness. And those weaker connections that may pick you up if you have car trouble are people who might send you a get well card or visit you in the hospital, but they don't want you to live with them for 2 months. So those connections are very important for you today, but also as you get older. So I really believe, I am not familiar, I've never met Charles before until he emailed me, but I really believe that aging is a civil rights issue. We are all aging. There's someone on our board who says you either are old, you love somebody who is old, or you may be old one day. So we all need to be paying attention to the issues of aging and how do you want the world to look like when you're aging. It's never too early or too late to plan for aging. A lot of us might not think about it until it's too late, so it's really important for us to plan financially and physically and socially for that stage of our life. It's quality over quantity, so it's not just about the quantity of our years, but also the quality of those years. And I wish I had printed my notes. So there's a lot of value to aging as well. We're more patient, more wise, we have more experience. So to really appreciate the assets of older adults in our communities. I'm a social worker. I don't know if there's any social workers in this room, but we often, when we work with clients, use Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there's more to life than housing. So it's really important to connect older adults to services in their community, and that's where the service coordinator is very critical to making sure that older adults are staying connected in their community, who are living in affordable housing, but also who are living independently. So if you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the base, you always start at the base to get to the top, which is a productive, to be the most productive person that you can be. So at the base, we don't need housing. We need food, we need water, we need to fulfill some biological functions, but we don't need a house. The second level, safety, is where a house is nice. We have shelter over us now. It's nice to be protected from the elements, from the rain and the snow, but it's not critical for survival. But as you notice, there's 3 levels above housing, so there's a lot more to life than housing. We want to stay socially connected. We like to go maybe to a baseball game and stay entertained. Whatever it is you like to do, there's more to life than just your housing. So what is Oasis? Like I said, I'm with the Oasis Institute that's based here in St. Louis. We were founded in the early 80s. We have since expanded across the country to a national network. We have 9 centers throughout the country. And what we focus on, the secret that research says, the secret recipe for healthy aging is to keep your mind active through lifelong learning, to keep your bodies active through active lifestyles, and to stay socially engaged through volunteer engagement, or within your community with family and friends. So just a couple examples of our, how Oasis approaches this model for healthy aging. We have our catalog, which is on the table, and this has all of our lifelong learning classes that are offered in the community. Membership is free for adults 50 plus, and anyone is welcome to attend, however. I often make the joke we don't check ID at the door. Anybody can come to our programs, but you do have to be 50 to be a member, and all that means is you get this in the mail. and you can decide to take a class or not. One program that I particularly like, because often people don't open our catalog, they think we're oats, because I guess there's the O and an S, and they're like, oh, that's nice that you offer transportation, but we have a lot of great classes. It's almost like a college course catalog of different opportunities, and I really enjoy the Carnahan Courthouse. There's always a series at the federal courthouse of classes, and they actually covered the case that Ollie discussed earlier today in our catalog over the summer. And those opportunities, it's $5 to go, and it's usually presented by a federal judge or a U.S. prosecutor, a U.S. attorney. So I just find that very interesting, and you cannot find that opportunity anywhere else where you're engaging with some pretty influential members of society for only $5. So then active lifestyles, health is wealth. In our catalog, we have a lot of health opportunities as well. We have exercise programs and also health programs that are offered in the community, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And so a question, what are the 4 behaviors that lead to most preventable death? Yes. Falls. So that's true, but there's 4 behaviors identified by the World Health Organization and the CDC that if we could improve these 4 things, it would prevent most preventable premature death. It's diet, exercise.
Friendships?
No, that'd be a good one though, friendships. It's smoking and alcohol consumption. So if we could limit those 4 things, it would solve most of our premature death and chronic conditions. But falls is huge, and that relates back to physical activity. So another thing that Oasis, another reason that we promote active lifestyles as part of our mission is fall prevention. So slips and falls are the leading cause of injury for adults 50 plus. Missouri is highest in falls in the country, or 4th highest in falls, but we're number 1 for injury related to falls. And we have no idea why. We are always brainstorming, trying to figure out why would our falls be more dangerous than the rest of the country. So the direct medical costs from falls are $31 billion annually. So the more we can prevent falls by keeping older adults active in their community with friends, and staying physically active and connected, the more that they'll stay stable in their housing as well. And if you want to learn more about falls, there is the Missouri Fall Coalition. So there's a website, and they have different activities and events and just statistics about falls in Missouri and around the country. So then to community engagement. So staying active in your community, staying active socially is very important. In St. Louis, our volunteers contributed we have over 2,000 volunteers. Most of those are Oasis tutors, which is a great opportunity for older adults to stay active in their community by volunteering at the school closest to their house. So we're hoping to eliminate that transportation barrier, and it's 1 hour a week helping a student to read, and that improves the socialization for the older adult, but also improves reading skills. We've done research that shows that children improve their reading skills by 1 grade and even 2 grade levels in just 1 year working with a tutor. So that's a great opportunity to intergenerational opportunity. So most of those 2,000 volunteers are tutors and offering an in-kind donation to the St. Louis community of over $2 million. And social isolation. So it's very important for us to have those friends who will hide us from the cops or take care of us if we have an injury, and also help us if we have any other issues that we need help with. So the latest research from social isolation is showing that being socially isolated is deadlier than smoking, and it's actually worse for our health than obesity and the chronic illnesses associated with obesity. So it's really important for us to stay socially engaged. And in the United States, social isolation has been increasing. It's doubled since the 80s, that 40% of adults, not just older adults in the United States, feel lonely. And the implications of that for public health, since it is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day, are very important. The AARP Foundation has just launched in November a program called Connect to Effect. as a campaign to put out some of these messages about the dangers of social isolation, and we'll be hearing more in the coming years about the importance of reducing social isolation. And it's particularly an issue for older adults, but the other high-risk group is younger adults, 20 to 30-year-old adults, and the thought is that they're more connected virtually on social media, and having 5,000 Facebook friends is not the equivalent of meeting with people face to face. So it's really important to have that in-person interaction. And we wanted to just make a distinction for social isolation between isolation and loneliness. So isolation is objective, so you can be completely isolated in the woods and you're objectively lonely, but you can also be lonely surrounded by people. So loneliness is subjective and isolation is more objective. So it's really important that we address social isolation, even for individuals who may be surrounded by people, for example, in a housing facility. Isolation and loneliness are both an issue. So just a partnership highlight really quickly to show how this works on the ground in an affordable housing community. So Oasis has partnered with Lutheran Senior Services since 2003, and they have 9 affordable housing communities in the metro area. 1 is in Illinois, and Oasis partners with 8 of those facilities. We don't partner with the facility that's in Illinois. We offer 4 programs on site at Lutheran Senior Services facilities, and members of the community are also welcome to attend these programs. 4 of the programs that we offer on a regular basis are peer-led discussion groups, which is a social isolation prevention program. It's offered once 1 hour a month. So it's a very low commitment for residents. And then Matter of Balance is an 8-week program, which is to improve strength and hopefully prevent falls. And then Exerstart is a 20-week program. It's offered 2 times a week, so it's 40 sessions, and that's also to improve strength. And then Better Choices, Better Health Diabetes is a diabetes self-management program. And so in preparation for this presentation, I went and met with the service coordinator at one of the Lutheran Senior Services facilities, and she said that one of their strongest partnerships is with Oasis. They do have other partnerships, but she appreciates that there's a variety of programming because they have a lot of residents who stay there for who are aging in place, and they like the variety. They don't want to go to the same class every time. And then another benefit is that the programs are offered on site, so transportation is not a barrier. And then I met with Shelby, who actually took one of our classes, and she didn't want to, but she had a fall in November, and her physical therapist really encouraged her to take Exerstart, which was offered on site at her where she lived, and she was amazed that a couple months later that she was able to not only feed herself without difficulty, but is able to walk up a flight of stairs, which was really a goal for her. And she walks 1 to 2 miles a week with her daughter, and recently finished the Mature Mile at Forest Park. And so to have that improvement really surprised her, that she was able to recover so quickly. And she really, she didn't want to take the class because the previous instructor from a class she took wasn't as impactful, and so it was really about the instructor really made a connection with his class. So she was able to climb 14 stairs for the first time in 6 months, and one of her biggest motivations is that she's going to be a great-grandmother in July, and he lives in that house that she had to climb up 14 stairs. So she really wanted to be able to visit him. So her comments were that the keys to this program being successful for her was having a strong leader of that program. Everyone in senior housing, she said, has some kind of health issue, some kind of chronic illness, and having an instructor who was respectful and developed trust with everyone, with the residents, was very important, and who really pushed them as well and motivated them to do their best, because everyone has different health issues, so not everyone's going to be on the same page, but to really push them to do more. And that's something she said the previous instructor did not do. and offering quality programs and affordable. So the programs on site have are very affordable. The one she took was $5, and she did the math, and it broke down to less than 50 cents a class. And so she is always encouraging others to take these programs, and they often say, "Oh, I can't afford it." And she says, "Well, it's only 50 cents a class." So she's trying to encourage others to stay active as well. So the results from participating in Extra Start is that she can feed herself, she can walk the stairs. She said all these words herself. Her endurance improved, her flexibility improved, her strength improved, her alertness. She doesn't nap during the day anymore because she sleeps better at night. And that she's also improved her socialization by engaging with the other people in the class. So how do Oasis programs help seniors to age in place? All of our programs are evidence-based and peer-led, so when looking for programs in housing, making sure that they're quality programs, and by having healthier adults that are more active, more engaged, and more connected, they'll be able to stay in their housing longer. Programs help to reduce housing turnover by reducing ER visits, reducing hospitalization, managing and preventing chronic illness, and improving social connections. And in the future, I believe that we'll see more programs such as these that are helping older adults to stay in place. So if you're not familiar with, there's a concept called Food Train, which connects, all these kind of make me think of Uber. It connects people who might need a meal who are homebound with other people in the community to offer a meal a couple times a week. And so they actually, it'd be someone in your neighborhood and you'd actually go to their house with a warm meal. And the effects of that program have shown that people start eating healthier themselves because they're preparing a meal for someone else, often someone who's sick or older adult. And so then they start eating healthier themselves to, if they're making a meal for somebody else. So it's had these other effects that they didn't expect, and also the socialization piece. Then you have someone checking in on that older adult. And then TaskRabbit is very much like Uber in the sense that it's connecting people who might need a service. It's like if you lived in New York City, for example, and you needed someone to go run and get groceries for you, you would go on TaskRabbit, find someone who might live in the neighborhood that needed to make extra money. They would just go buy you some groceries, and then the app, I think it's an app, would take the money. So there's no money exchange, similar to Uber. The money's just exchanged through the application. And everyone has a background check, so they're safe people that can do different chores for you. And then the last one, linkages, there's no money exchanged. I think it's linkages. And it connects someone who might need, again, groceries, and someone might bank 2 hours of service to buy your groceries, but now by banking that 2 hours, then when they need something, they can get that something for no money. So maybe a college student goes and buys groceries and banks 2 hours of service, but then wants help with a math tutor. And then now that person's banked 2 hours to get a math tutor to tutor them. So there's no money exchange, but it's an exchange of time and skills. And it's also socializing. So a couple resources in St. Louis to make sure that older adults are staying connected in their communities. A lot of these options are probably here. A lot of these organizations, there's people who've been here presenting. The Alzheimer's Association has a 24-hour hotline that I've often connect people to who are caregiving for others, because it's available 24 hours. And then the St. Louis Senior Times, if you're not familiar with it, you can order a copy with more resources. And then I've included my contact information. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.